Welcome back to the Intrepid Sea and Space Museum. I'm Kate Good, one of the restoration specialists here at the museum, and welcome to the Hotter Than Hades aircraft restoration hangar. Today, in order to genuinely find the coolest place to work, but something that you guys haven't seen yet, I will be taking plastic and putting it on the belly of our F9F Cougar. A quick recap on the Cougar. This is a relic from the Korean War. And before it came the Panther that had straight wing and fixed wing. And then this came through, which was more efficient and easier and more compact. And what we're doing and why I'm actually going to plastic the belly is this is truly just a repaint for us, which is rare. We haven't found corrosion. We haven't found places that we need to fabricate parts or change anything. So what I'm going to be doing under the belly, we actually determined that doesn't need to be repainted at all. It is in excellent condition because obviously on the underside, it doesn't take the elements as much as the top side of it does. You can see already where I have done some of this. It's all along until the nose there, but this is an example of where I've done that on the landing gear. So I'm just going to continue doing this, and I try and do it with one piece of plastic, but sometimes it doesn't work. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and ask me questions as you want. Yeah, the plastic I'm using is called shark skin. It's essentially the same plastic you would put down if you were a painter or you were doing something else that would make a mess because it's easy to clean up. And it's also excellent. Usually for a home use, you'd have it on your floor, but it's an excellent thing to put on the outside of airplanes or cars that are being repainted and things like that. And it's literally, it looks like plastic wrap when it comes out of here. And if you're wondering how I pick how much to use, it's totally indiscriminate and I just kind of guess. Not everything is an exact science in here. I shouldn't need that. So this stuff, it looks like it's just this tiny piece, but it expands out a lot.
Is it durable, this stuff? Is it like protected against all the elements, or is it just the spraying?
It's really just meant for paint. You don't want to leave this out like outside anywhere. It will slowly just melt to your surface, and that's not great. But in here, for the purpose that we have, because we move relatively quickly, I also make sure to leave, you can see kind of how there's like air inside of this one. You make sure to leave a little bit of air in there so it's not just like vacuum sealed. Hi, JC. I love you. When are you coming to visit me? And as you can see, this just continues to expand, which is great and a pain. Excellent.
From David.
Oh, I love David. Thanks, man.
Morning, Kate. What are the green X marks on the tail?
Oh, I was just like, what green? So that's actually indicating we also don't need to paint that area. So that's just letting anybody who works on that know, like, don't go here, please. So it's really just marking where we need to stop when we do sand. And you can see, so Liam, if you'll follow me up, you can see the tape that we've done along here and how only this section of wing is sanded. We don't have to do the trailing edge of the wing. So it's actually kind of funny. Peter and I have had to walk around several times and decide, okay, what needs attention, what doesn't need attention. And we always hope that things are in pretty good shape. One of the reasons that we are sanding this portion all the way up, it had some crackling and things like that. That's just in the paint and from wear. But up at the stars and bars, you can't see because Liam's not paying attention.
Sorry.
Jeez, come on, man. The stars and bars are not aligned how they should be. That is not correct. They are supposed to be aligned with the leading edge. And so part of that is we wanted to redo that, but you can also see some spaces where it's peeled off or there have been different issues. So that's why we're going to redo just the blue area on this wing. This silver on the leading edge is actually totally fine as well, which is primo great. Because working with the silver paint we have is a nightmare. My least favorite. Yeah. As you can see, I'm still expanding this. That's that's how much. Yeah, it is like it's just like no. Now you don't have to expand this whole thing, depending on what you're doing. But because I need to make it as best as I can all the way under the belly to the other side, I like to expand this completely. And it also gives me more leeway to make that air pocket space like I talked about before. Where's the rest of this? Okay. Now that I have this expanded out and you can see the absurd amount, when I go underneath here, just because there's dirt on the surface, there's dust on the floor from when we've been doing this, it's very smart to wear safety glasses. You don't have to wear a mask, like that's okay because it's not like pouring down on you, but wearing safety glasses just helps out. And especially if you have to reposition your tape, sometimes it'll pull some stuff off in terms of dirt and debris. So I'm going to drag this underneath here and myself and hope that, oh, those are gross. I don't do anything weird. There's also, on the plastic, there will be dirt from the ground because I had to do this on the ground. I'm also going to take my scissors. Underneath here, I have my scissors already, and I have tape, which is vital. So what I'm... Oh, you're fine. So... Oh, well, pretend it's an earthquake. So I'm going to expand my plastic and just lay it all the way out. And the top edge that I want to use, which is right here. And I will keep pushing this over. Ooh, it looks like I grabbed enough to make it. That's excellent. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is, once again, I'm looking for my top edge there. So, ow, this mic is like stabbing me. What I'm going to do here is just start my top edge there, like right underneath on the seam, so it can keep going this way. So I'm going to grab tape. I have green and blue tape here. It is entirely indiscriminate which one you use. Sometimes you come to a place where blue works better because you need something a little bit heavier, and sometimes you come to a place where green is sufficient enough. I like the green because it comes off very clean on all kinds of surfaces, and it's very easy to reposition. Sometimes the blue, you just have to scrap it and it's not helpful.
How is the underbelly of that aircraft? Is it in good condition under there?
Oh, it's in excellent condition. That's why I get to crawl under here and do this. So this way, I'm actually going to tape.
Is there an aircraft wrist, a hook.
Yes, there's a hook, but it's got its own little pocket that it goes inside of. So we will eventually pull that out to make sure that its condition is fine. But yeah, there's the way that the hook works on this instead of the other aircraft that you've seen that it's already out is it has its own little pocket that it goes into, and then it drops out when you actually need it to come onto the deck. Let me fix this. Yeah, they're just going to hear you're going to hear a lot of crinklies today, guys. When I'm setting this up, I try not to use like huge strips of tape because it can be, if I do have to reposition or anything else, it can be a pain to deal with that.
So you're like tacking it on a little bit.
Yes. Yep.
You need some help?
Nope. Liam, you never help us. Why are you offering now? It's so fun. Okay, so when I tack this, I'm actually taking the tape and just wrapping it around so it'll just hold in place. I'm sure you're like right up in my face. The biggest concern about this is suffocating. So the way I'm going to tack this is just over this edge because it gives me a nice starting spot. And I'll just do it in two places. Because if you taped all this down, your plastic would be wonky. Like it wouldn't be perfectly straight because you haven't been following the line. So now what I can do is there's another kind of eave in here.
It's interesting seeing the whole structure of the inside of the aircraft.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? It's, all the engineering that went into this to produce this is crazy.
And maybe, like mostly, just to fold this down.
And still hold it.
And still hold it.
Its integrity to fly.
Yep.
Amazing. Can you just see if there's any comments? Question?
Sure.
So these, so this panel up here with the circles cut in.
Yeah.
Are those circles just to reduce weight, of, to keep its rigidity, but still
So
lightness by
it's kind of like, you can't see it underneath here, but the exact same cutout goes in this spot. So it's kind of like tongue and groove similar. So it actually, if you had that just flat, it wouldn't secure as well, and the aerodynamics of it going through the seam would not be the same. So these are actually.
I thought it was not a structural. I thought it was just a weight reduction.
Yeah.
technique.
So it's because this is actually pretty light metal. It's not too bad. So these are actually recessed a little bit, kind of like a cup thing, and then the top here comes out kind of like a bulb, and they just fit together nicely.
And then you get that added strength.
And it also makes sure that everything coming together. So if you had this just flat, it would just leave space. Like you would just have a hole and it wouldn't be actually secured next to each other. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And the majority of swooping aircraft have something like this.
Just with that extra support.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you've really seen us mostly standing up to do things, but this is another reality of what we do. If I wasn't plasticking this off, I'd be sanding it. And I would be underneath with my full face mask because then all the crap falls on your face. But but we don't usually just leave the belly alone. But we are lucky that Cougars is in such excellent condition that we can very nicely just let it go. Actually going to use some blue because sometimes the interiors of these have a little bit of rust or extra dirt, and it gets stuck on the tape, but the tape doesn't stick to the surface, and it just goes. And I don't need that in my life. Ah, yes, I knew this was going to happen. So, one of the worst parts. Oh, heck yeah, that never happens. One of the worst parts of having to work with this plastic and tape is that usually once the tape is stuck to the plastic, it's like that's the end. If you rip the tape off the plastic, it'll rip the plastic. So when we're taking all of it off, that's fine. But usually what I have to do is just stick it like straight up, just stick it like that or fold it over and start again with a new piece of tape.
Hey, Rosie just arrived. She wants to know what planet are you at?
Is it our Rosie?
I don't know who it is.
Better be our Rosie. Yep, that's our Rosie. You know what plane this is, girl. It's our Cougar F9F. And this has been in here about a month now, a little less. And we have just been plugging along, getting the sanding done, things like that. We actually have quite a bit of this sanded, which is awesome. And like I said before, it's a Korean War relic. After the Korean War, this thing was done. The technologies had moved so much faster that it really wasn't needed anymore, which is nice. Because that means we get better stuff. America. Rosie and JC, don't you have day jobs? For those wondering, Rosie and JC came before me. So JC was here when I started as a volunteer, and then she left. Her husband is still active in the Navy, and she's a veteran. So she left to go with her husband to his next station in Virginia. And then Rosie, who was a former volunteer, came in with us, and I was still volunteering. And then Rosie also found an opportunity to work on private planes in Tennessee, where she had already, like, her family's there, and she had already built a home there. And actually, most of her family's in Brooklyn, Long Island. I don't remember. They're wild and they're awesome. But then at that point, I was apparently the next in the chain and got hired here 2 years ago. And I've been here ever since. So we love hearing from JC and Rosie. And I also text them all the time about all the things they did wrong on the airplanes while they were here. So when you see them, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So how did you get in? Did you just cold call this place, or did you know someone?
So I was here and I was looking for a job. And submitting 3 applications a week, 3 to 5, which if you've ever searched for a job recently is wild. So I was looking for something to do, and I knew the Intrepid was here. And I looked up on the website to see kind of volunteer opportunities, because I had volunteered or interned at other museums. I've actually been in the museum world for about 10 years now, on and off. And so I did that, and I was called in by our volunteer coordinator, and I got a chance to meet Peter, and I was accepted on with that. So I started as a volunteer, and then our downstairs exhibits team, I call them downstairs because that's where they are. Our exhibits team was doing a brand new exhibit for our Growler submarine. And they saw that what my history was and my experience with research and design. And they brought me on as an intern for the summer, and then brought me on as a contract position for the rest of the year until we could finish the Growler. So I've been employed here on and off for a few years. And then while I was searching for another job after my contract ended, about 8 months later, this job became available, and I applied for it, and I got it, and I've been here ever since. So that's how I ended up here, was just essentially almost like a cold call, like Liam said. I emailed my interest, and they asked me to come in, and I emailed them my resume when I did that, and the rest is history here,
It's
I guess.
actually a very rewarding career, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
You know, you're never going to make $1 million here, but you know, in the museum world, but you get to work on great things. You get to meet interesting people, and it's rewarding because you're educating people.
I have the coolest job on earth. I mean, genuinely believe I have the coolest job on earth. I come in every day, even when it's sweltering or freezing, as you have now seen both sides of. And I look forward to my day. I always have in my brain, okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing we have to do? And whether it's as tedious as cleaning hardware so we can reuse it, and honestly taping plastic on something, to having to fabricate a new patch, or even sanding and being up high on the aircraft. It's just such a cool job to have. And I love meeting other people, not only who have this job, but who don't, and you can just introduce that to them. There's actually a story that I love. We had some kids come, and we were showing them the rivet gun and things like that. And we passed it around, obviously not connected to anything. And this little girl asked me if she needed to have short hair to do this job, because I have short hair. Obviously, Peter does. And I said, oh, you can totally do this without short hair. And she was like, that's so awesome. And I think she's a future mechanic somewhere with longer hair.
But yeah, it's very rewarding that you can go out on the flight deck here and see your work. It's going to, you know, be around for, you know, decades.
A while. Yeah, it's really...
That's a rewarding thing, you know. I would rather do that than make $1 million on Wall Street and have nothing to show for it. I think I would rather, you know, have that rewarding feeling that you created or maintained something.
Well, there's also a certain privilege to being here, to being able to do this kind of thing in a museum, because Liam is right. I will never make $1 million. I will none of that. And the reason I was able to volunteer and take an internship that was paid, but regular style, is that I have a husband. Like he had an income. We looked at what we had and decided for a little while, yes, we can afford to do this. And then I had some money coming in from doing the exhibit work. And then I found a part-time job at a financial firm, which was, I cannot be in the financial world. It's just, no, it was awful. It was awful to go to work every day. I'd get on the subway and just be like, oh. So, and breaking into this kind of work, not as a veteran who's worked on planes, I don't have an A&P license, is difficult. And I learned everything that I did on site. Well, not everything, but a lot of things on site. So if you have the opportunity to be able to do something like that, take it. There's also opportunities if you go to school for mechanical things, museum things. A lot of the times you can get internships through school that count for credit, and things like that. So that's how I ended up doing this. I wanted to do this since I was 5 years old. I took a very roundabout way to get there, but I'm here.
Have any affiliation with like universities, that kind of thing? Like, do we have partnerships with?
I am not sure. That's a question for Eric.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I know that we are working on becoming Smithsonian affiliated, which means that you are accredited by the Smithsonian Institution and you are considered one of the top-notch museums. I believe we have already filed for that and we're just being considered at this point, or we are about to. But yes, that was something that is an aspiration for a lot of museums just like ours.
All right, well, I'll let you do your thing, and we'll see if there's any more questions, and then we'll do another 10 minutes, and we'll wrap this show up.
Cool. I'm just going to tape. More tape. So what I'm doing is I tacked down some on the inside and I made sure that everything lined up. So now what I can do is come across and make my full strip here. So when I go back underneath, then I go to this line and I make that straight across, because obviously you're not taping underneath this. So that's the best to do. And honestly, it's plastic. We have more. If it's not straight, it doesn't matter as long as it's covering everything. I'm just kind of anal about it, as everyone here knows. But yeah, it's one of those things where this is nice because it's so low stress, low stakes. If you covered something, cool. And if you didn't, you can go back with paper or with more plastic to do it. When I miss little things, or when little things don't really work in, we won't paint where all the mechanics here are for the wing. So I'll come in here and, like you saw me do paper on the cockpit, I will paper in here because it's just so much easier to do than doing the plastic and getting it all over and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really just pick your poison, paper or plastic, like the grocery store. And you can actually see how this is like rolling upward. Because of the way I had to cut this, it obviously is not straight because I just took scissors and went kind of like awkwardly cutting wrapping paper when you're really bad at wrapping presents or you're drunk. Don't do that. The holidays are a lovely time. Don't do that. Okay. So I'm going to scoot back in here and I'm just going to tack up a little further. I always like to sit, like, being under the belly. So you're very likely to sit up by accident and just smash your face. So as much as I can, I like to sit on the side where I don't have to do that. There was one day, you've seen Peter work in our Genie, essentially cherry picker, when he was doing the priming. And he moved that one day and it makes a really loud boop noise. And I thought it was our fire alarm going off. And I sat bolt upright and really, I had a goose egg here. I mean, probably the size of this roll of tape. It was pretty brutal. I had to come out and kind of sit there for a second, like, ugh.
All right, Craig, let's wrap this up.
Cool. Cool. So thank you. This is so sweaty. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed telling you about putting plastic on. I know it may not have been the most exciting thing, but it is something that's very vital to our project here. Everything that we do here is vital to our project. And it makes it go forward so we can finish on time with what we need. This plastic is now blowing into my head like a shower curtain. So once again, thank you very much for joining us here at the Intrepid Sierra and Space Museum, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.